This is the second round of the interviews of the people that were selected by commissioners for the JCDA. And Mr. Fiego is going to be calling in. He's in between places at the airport, so he's going to be calling in at 6:05. So hopefully he'll be able to do that, because he'll be between places that he may not be able to call at the right moment. So anyway, when he calls, we're going to take that call, and then never mind.
It'd be better to get it.
Answer. Hello?
Good evening, this is Sean.
Hi, I'm Mr. Fiego. This is Patsy Noland. How are you?
Commissioner Nolan, how are you?
I'm fine. So you're in a good spot right now, huh? Okay.
I am standing perfectly still.
Okay. Well, we'll start your second round interview, and we're gonna give everyone the option of being able to just have this open, or if you are more comfortable or you would prefer, it can be done in executive session, which we're leaving it to each candidate. So which would you prefer?
For the sake of your time, because you've had a long day today according to your agenda, I don't mind having an open session instead of stopping and having everybody leave. That's not fair to you guys.
Okay, all right. So we'll start, we'll go ahead with the questions. This is going to be brief. I think we asked most of our questions before. So I'm going to start to my left with Commissioner Tabb, and we'll start with her question first. Can you hear us okay?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, you're loud and clear. Okay.
I don't need an extended explanation. I'm just wondering what your understanding of the Open Meetings Act is.
Okay, I'm sorry, you were broken up. What was that?
Commissioner Tabb asked you what you believe the definition of the Open Meetings Act is.
The Open Meeting Act actually was done to prevent any kind of behind-the-scenes work of a established body. It's there to not only protect the established body, but to protect the citizens that they represent. So to me, that means that it's a symbol of transparency, as long as it's not divulging any kind of PII or personal information.
Okay, thank you.
No problem, ma'am.
Okay. Commissioner Hudson doesn't have any questions. The only question I have for you is, why should we appoint you over the other candidates to this position?
Well, not fully being briefed on their capabilities, but I have numerous experience within the public sector, beginning all the way back approximately 25 years ago with public safety. I've held appointed positions not only for local and state, but county and federal authorities, positions of public trust. I have a strong experience background over the last 10 years with business development practices, contract negotiations, just making the inroads to discuss and negotiate contracts. And I really just want to serve my neighbors. So.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner
No problem, ma'am.
Commissioner Lorenzetti?
I just have a general question. You were sort of put forward as the Shiloh person from the Shiloh Citizens Association. How would you state to how you're going to represent all the members of the county before the JCDA?
Well, I believe that I was originally put up as a Shiloh member because we had the understanding that as an established HOA that we could put a person in the on the JCDA more as a representative of the individual community. The more I'm researching it and looking into it and doing my due diligence, this is a lot more than that. So I am willing to step up and not only represent the Shiloh community, but represent the citizens of the county. So if there's ever an event where there's a perceived OCI that occurs, I've already established the notification with my HOA that I would step down as a HOA member and represent the county as a whole.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner?
I'm hoping that answers your question, sir.
You might not be able to hear me.
Commissioner Compton?
Thanks.
How are you doing, Sean? Hey, so if you're appointed, what's the first order of business you'd like to tackle as a new board member?
Okay, the way I understood that is what would be my first order of business as a board member?
Yes.
You'd like to tackle, like, what agenda would you like to put forth as a new board member at the JCDA?
Well, one of the things that I'm very fond of, mainly because I have a child that attends Jefferson County High School, that I really believe we need to step up our efforts that if we're bringing a entity, whether it's industrial or business corporate, into our community, we need to establish some kind of rapport with them and set up a mentoring program with our students. I know I had said this prior in the first round of interviews, but I'm concerned at how the children feel they need to leave the area once they're done with their education to get a meaningful job. I want to do something about that and bring the jobs in to allow our students and afford them the opportunity to stay near their family and not feel like they have to move. The other thing that I would be looking at is any kind of major corporation that we bring in, we need to look at not only what we offer them, but what can they offer us, whether it's grants to local law enforcement, local fire, EMS. As they start coming in and our resident capital starts increasing, we need an EMS and fire and foundation to the county that can support that growth. And it's not fair to give corporations and major industries a way in and then put that growth of our public sector on the taxpayers. So we need to do something that allows them to help out. So I'd be looking at mainly business entities that not only want to be here, but want to help our constituents.
Okay, thank you, sir. I think that's all the questions we have for you. We will be listening to the rest of the folks this evening, and we will make a decision on March 21st at a regular meeting. Thank you very much. I appreciate your being able to call in here this evening.
Not a problem. I just want to thank you guys for the flexibility due to this unforeseen occurrence.
Sure. You're welcome. Have a great evening. Safe travels.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Bye. Okay. Mr. Bakken? Yep. Come on down. And I'll ask you the same question. Do you prefer open session or executive session?
Open's fine.
Great. Okay. Very good. We'll start again with Jane.
Just explain your basic understanding of the Open Meetings Act.
Actually, I won't even have to. I'll agree with Mr. Diego that it is for transparency as long as like personal information and personal identifying information is not released. It's transparent, no behind the scenes, no thoughts of conspiracy. It's just an open meeting.
Okay. And the question I have for you is why should we appoint you over the other candidates listed on this paper?
And that's a question I knew you were going to ask. That's a question that I ask at all of my interviews. What can you bring to the corporation? I have a four-pronged answer, and I'll keep it short. I could expound on it for a long time, but I will keep it short tonight. The first one is I am absolutely in 100% agreement with the vision and the mission statement for not only the JCDA, but Mr. Lorenzetti told me to get familiar with this, so I am now familiar with the vision in here, and I do agree with it and support it 100%. The second one was I would be an educated board member. I'm only 26 pages into this. I'm doing a deep dive into it, and it has so many acronyms that it's unbelievable. But I do know that I live in a preferred growth area, which I didn't know I lived in. I know what urban growth boundaries are now. I was surprised to find out that 70%, when this was completed, of our residents live outside the municipalities. So I'm digging deep in here. Like I said, I'm only 20-some pages in, and I've got a list of like this of the acronyms. So
There's
Yeah.
a shortage of acronyms in there.
it's a tough document to read, but I think everybody should be familiar with it. The third prong is I have a vested interest in the county. Homeowner, I do have interest in what our tax bases, our utilities are going to be. I've got 6 kids, 3 of which have went from 3rd grade through Shepherd University in our school system. I've got a 1- and 2-year-old that are going to be starting up. So I am interested in what our schools are going to be doing, how we're going to be competing with the other surrounding communities. I'm interested in the infrastructure. I am a commuter. I use Route 9 and 340 on a daily basis. I do travel into Washington, D.C., so I'm a little bit concerned about the funding for the MARC train. So I want to deal with the infrastructure. So I am vetted in our area. I'm going to be here for a long time, and I want to make sure that the county and the residents of our county prosper. The last one that I can bring, and I do think this is the best one that I can bring, is I have proven and demonstrated business acumen. The decisions that I make absolutely pass the test of public scrutiny and legal validation. Yep.
I hope this doesn't sound too odd. I know you're a big football person, Little League football. Current Little League football stadium is part of Ranson's Parks and Recreations. Have you had any contact with the city officials at Ranson concerning this position?
No, I have not.
What's your general feeling about the trajectory or leadership of the JCDA?
That's a little bit of an unknown for me, being the fact that it is going to be a lot of new members on the board. I wish you would have asked me the same question you asked the last interviewee, because one of the big things that I would say was, I think since it is going to be a fairly large new membership on the board, everybody does need to know what the requirements, the procedures, the processes are of the board. They need to know the documents that govern the board. And I truly think to put the board on a basis where where it will be an asset for the community, I think there needs to be some absolute, very thorough training on what the position requires.
Because you want to see the JCDA do a U-turn, a 360, follow its course, but get off course slightly?
I wouldn't say a 180, I'd say maybe a 90. I mean, I truly believe that the board is a useful member of our local government, but my perception is things look somewhat a little bit disjointed. I think there needs to be some more unity across all the branches of our local government, the utility board, the school board, the development commission, the county commission. I think it all needs to me, from an outsider, it looks like it's a little bit compartmentalized. And when things work as a team, I think we can go a little bit farther.
Thanks, that's all I have.
Great. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Joy Bridie. Hi. I'll ask you the same question. Open session or closed session?
Open session is
Okay.
fine, thank you.
All right. Jane?
Oh, sleep at the wheel. Same question, what is your understanding of the Opens Meeting Act?
Open Meeting Act, my understanding is that it means transparency whenever possible, as simple as that.
Can you be, I didn't ask this of everybody else, but can you be more specific, like, what are the reasons you can go in executive session and when can you not? Do you have any knowledge of that?
I have seen the act in use, and I'm not sure exactly where the boundaries lay. I think that would be a conversation to have with the new JCDA and within its leadership to understand completely and to find consensus within the group on where those boundaries are.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Why should you be the one that we appoint to the JCDA?
Well, I come to you from a little bit of a different angle than I think many of the applicants. I have a very strong background in creative thinking. And I think that creative thinking is really powerful right now because we can get stuck in quagmires and not sure what to do. And I feel like I have a real strength to be able to look at a situation and draw out people's voices in the room and help to bring new ideas to the table and help people see that their own ideas are powerful and interesting, and by working together, we can come up with something far greater than if we're working independently.
Thank you.
I think the last time you were here, you talked about the county's internet needs or broadband needs. How would you work with that on the board?
That's interesting. That is one of the projects that I would feel fairly strong about, starting as a group to work within the state, within the county, within all of our resources that are available. I've actually been working with Comcast over the past 2 months to have them extend internet down my road, and it is a long, slow process, but we are making progress. And there are actually, we have 32 families that are that we're working with to extend Comcast. They need to have very specific lists of addresses and names to be able to extend because it costs them thousands of dollars to extend anywhere. But I feel like if we go through systematically and target where are the places that have the worst internet service and ask that can be done.
It's always about the money. All rural America has a problem with the internet stuff. So you're a creative thinker.
I am.
Do you have any creative ideas for Jefferson County going forward?
Well, not so much ideas as processes. I've been experimenting over the past years with really bringing cross-pollination, so bringing people from private sector and business together with artists and nonprofits and agriculture and bringing everybody to the table rather than getting small groups of people who always make decisions, really reaching out further into the community and finding people who have always been interested in being involved but haven't figured out how, and being that link to bringing them into the process and getting their ideas at the table also, because as I said earlier, I feel that we have all of the ideas and all of the answers on which directions to move next. We have so many wonderful things here in the county that we're not. So one of the things that I would really want to do is bring more.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you for your time. I really appreciate being earlier in the day.
I'm sure.
We do too.
I'm
Yeah,
sure.
we like that too.
Thank you.
You're all fell asleep at 11, right?
Gary Davis? Yeah.
This guy sells pretty good.
Mr. Davis, do you prefer open session or closed session for your questions?
I think this is absolutely fine.
Okay, good. We'll start down to my left again.
Please explain your understanding and use of the Open Meetings Act.
I think as the earlier candidates for the position have stated and stated fairly, total transparency so that no one thinks that something is happening behind the scenes. I think that there are times when it needs to be closed. There may be legal sessions that come up, legal interpretations, and under those circumstances, I think that would be valid. Other than that, I think that everything should be open to the public.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Why should you be the one that we appoint to the JCDA over
Well,
everyone else?
Thank you. I hope that I'm one of many, and I think that my vast experience over the many years that I've had in creating my own business, working in union facilities, where I was a union steward, working in management facilities at IBM and Verizon, having a good cross-section of, actually of most businesses that would require any type of certification and verification to national standards. And that's given me a good insight into the various industries that are across the country. Small businesses, large businesses, they all have the same goal, and that's to make a profit, and at the same time, they have advantages that they can all bring to a community. And I think that having played in that marketplace for years, I'm an old guy, I can not be befuddled by someone representing something that might not be true. And on the other hand, I think that I have advantages of going out and speaking with organizations or plants or whatever that we may want to bring to this community for the benefit of the community. And I think I could represent you well.
I just have one other question.
Yes.
Do you live inside the corporation of Charlestown?
I live in Huntfield.
Okay, that's what I thought.
How's that work out?
That works out fine.
I
Thank
thought
you.
so.
Ralph?
Well, let me follow up on that. You're retired from the city of Charlestown?
I beg your pardon?
Are you retired from the city of Charlestown?
Not from the city of Charlestown, no. I've never worked for the city of Charlestown. I'm just plain happily retired.
That's why I have retired, then I had
Oh, that's fine.
Charlestown.
Oh,
I
I'm
don't remember if I
sorry.
put
that
that.
I
but-
hope I didn't mislead you at all.
No, no. It's probably just the way I did my notes. And Huntfield, Charlestown, whatever, have you had any discussions with any of the cities about this position?
Have I had any discussion with any within the city?
Within, say, the city governments? Or-
No, I haven't spoken with anyone on it, to be totally honest with you. I am, how's the best thing? I am independent for registration. I'm open to all avenues of input. I listen to Democrats, I listen to Republicans, and I try and form a decision that I think would be good, one for me, and two for our country. And of course, if I represent the board, it would have to be whatever represents the board the best.
So I'll be brief. If appointed, what's your first order of business? What do you want to push first and foremost as a board member?
You know, that's really an interesting question, and having the advantage of listening to a couple of earlier invitees here this evening, I think that what I would like to perhaps see as a board, if we could get with high school students and put it into some type of a curriculum agenda where they would work in various, because not all of them are going to graduate, and put them into different businesses, which we have many here in the county, in our county, and have them do maybe a temporary workload or an experience to understand what work is really about. Because I'll tell you something that was crazy the other day, and I thought so much time has passed by since I was a young man, but there was a young fella at Wise the other day giving his mom a little trouble, and he wanted something. He was only about 9 years old, I think. And I asked him if he had any money for that, and he said, "No, I don't have any money." I didn't expect he would have any. But I said, "Well, you know, if you want to buy that, why don't you go get a paper route?" And then it sort of light came on, you know, and I said, "Paper route? Who the heck does a paper route anymore, you know?" But so things have changed, times have changed, but I still think we need work ethics, and I think that if we could present a program that might be beneficial to the students, because a lot of them will stay here and maybe work in an industry and see what they have to do in that industry and what they need to do to be management in that industry, not just a straight worker.
Just one quick follow-up. So the perception of the JCDA and maybe perhaps Jefferson County in general right now over current issues, how will you help mend those issues? What will you help put forth from the outside looking in that you should come to Jefferson County?
You're referring to Rockwell.
Or any other business that may or may not be.
I'm just curious.
Maybe that's the biggest one right here,
Yeah.
right now. Because maybe the perception from the outside looking in, maybe, obviously the JCDA needs to bring more businesses here.
Correct.
How can they repair the potential damage that may or may not have occurred as a result of another deal?
Right. I think part of that answer will reflect on how the business continues to go with Rockwell. However, let's say they stay, all right? Then there's a certain percentage of the people in the county that are going to resent that. There's also a percentage of the people in the county, I don't know what the percentages are, I could guess, but that are in favor of it. But the reality is that we will have to move forward no matter what happens. And I think that we could not easily, but we could present Jefferson County still as a great place to live. We're so close to Washington, okay? Great place to work. We've got good companies here to work for. And I really think that you could draw other businesses here based on the fact of where we are, of course, where we're located, and the living that we have to offer. I don't know if that would suffice.
That's a good
your
answer. Yeah, you sell yourself very well. I think you said you were a salesperson or a good salesperson in your first interview. So
I would like to represent you well.
is everything you just said a fragment of imagination?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity. It's greatly appreciated.
You're welcome.
Good luck on your selection process.
Thanks.
Okay, we're running a little ahead of schedule. Brandon Fisher, come on down. Hi there. How's it going? Good. So we'll start to my left again, same routine as before. Jane?
Yeah, hi, good evening. Explain to me your understanding of the Open Meetings Act and what it means.
Best thing I can say about that is I don't know a lot about it, I guess, as much in depth as I should. But biggest thing is transparency, like people said. Saying as much as you can to people is huge. I feel like they're being left in the dark. I think more legal issues are the biggest thing with the Open Meetings Act, being able to talk with lawyers behind doors. That's the biggest one, I think, that I've gotten out of it from just seeing previous meetings, how they've gone, and through all local government, whether it's city, county, or at the commission meetings and everything. I think that's important and everything, right there.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I don't know a lot about that, though. I know, but I think teaching whoever gets on the board, like people were saying previously, is going to be a big thing, because we do have people who are new to this for sure, and yeah, bringing all that to them, to their attention, what is or isn't legal, what you can and can't talk about, is going to be absolutely necessary. So, because you're going to have so many new people at one time, you're just not going to be able to get everybody caught up to speed, if like it'd be one person. So, anyway.
Thank you. Okay. So why should we appoint you to this board over the other candidates that have applied?
I think a big thing with me is my age and my background and my willingness to serve are probably the biggest things that I see. I resonate a lot with a lot of the people who said previous things also in the county. My background is pretty much infrastructure and everything, and I think that's absolutely necessary. Being probably a little bit younger than most people who have applied, I see it at a generational level, 2 and 3 generations down the road. What are we going to have for people here? What kind of jobs are we going to be able to have here for people? I think that's huge to me, to be able to see that. What kind of infrastructure are we going to need to bring in with all that? I think certain projects are going to be necessary that we're going to have to find funding for, and work with other companies and governmental bodies to bring in the jobs that we need. I think my willingness to work with people too, of all different backgrounds is a big thing. Just because you and me don't agree on one issue doesn't mean that we're not going to, we can work together on another issue just because I don't agree with you on something else. Like I'll bring back the broadband thing is huge, and I've heard a lot of people talking about also the road widening projects coming through 340, south. Like that's going to be a big deal. All the truck traffic and just general traffic. If we're going to be bringing more people into this county, we need to look at how they're going to get here, essentially. Coming from 81 Martinsburg isn't as bad, but coming up from Route 7, it's just a steady line of traffic. And if we're going to be bringing more people in, we need to figure out how to do that. That and also looking at Route 9 in Virginia and having to figure that out too. That's a different aspect too. That people, and I've worked there, so I know it's my personal experience. One little car accident and the whole everything's just shut down. But those are different things that I've seen. So.
I don't remember. Which union were you with?
I'm with the IBEW. I'm a journeyman lineman with IBEW. So
I'm going to ask you to step out of that. When you sit at home and drinking a beer at a barbecue, what's your view of the county, and what do you think the county's future is?
I view the county as awesome. I've got a great view from my back porch and my front porch. So I get the mountains on one side and I get to see the sun go down on the other, depending on what side of it I'm on. My view for the county is to, I guess, grow the areas that want to grow and not push too much on other parts of the counties that don't want it there. And I know that's not going to be 100% able to do that every time. I think being able to, like I said, my view, I guess, view of the county, are you saying like short-term, long-term, or just in general?
Your view on it.
To be able to attract more people here, more businesses here is a huge thing by still somewhat maintaining what we are and staying true to our roots of Jefferson County. I think that's going to be a big part. There's no reason we can't have it both ways. I feel, we are tourism bedroom community people. I've heard that term thrown around a lot. I'm not afraid to admit that. I'm not going to deny that at all. Some people really resonate with that, but then there's also the other side of it. If we're going to be bringing in, I don't mind having bigger businesses here either. At the same time, So I think, that's all I got. I think on that.
So, do you live in Huntfield also?
No, I'm a Cabletown area.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm out in that area.
That's why he's got that pretty view. He's
Yeah.
out there in the country.
It's awesome.
The reason I thought you were in Huntfield, I don't know.
No.
Okay, so just even our commission, the generations, we're across the spectrum here. You don't really see that usually. I think it's good to have like different generations of folks on boards in general, because you bring
Yeah.
different ideas and different like viewpoints on
Yeah,
things.
it's diversity.
Exactly. So, being from the generation more probably closer to me,
Yeah.
what do you think the county is severely lacking that you, as that generation, would like to see that other areas may have? Or
It's the county lacking. Man.
how can we bring more younger families and folks into the county that will help us grow into the future?
Well, I think the biggest thing is what kind of people or what kind of jobs are we going to attract, and we need to go from there. If we're going to focus on tech, we need to get with Blue Ridge Technical College, which I have a few little contacts up there, and get with them. And what do we need to do to be putting our citizens or our residents in line to be able to get those jobs so that they're qualified for those jobs? I'm not going to hire a mechanic to be a carpenter, so if we're going to go send people to college, we need to have them come out and get the training they need to be able to work on the jobs or the assembly lines or whatever it may or may not be to do those jobs. They need to be trained to do it. That's what I worry about. I think that's kind of something that I see, having the training for our generation to be able to go into the jobs that are here. and advertising that also, going into the high schools, and showing, hey, this is what you can have, you know, this is what you can have if you follow these steps, and this is what the salaries are and everything else. There's no reason we can't be doing that, and pushing that whole side of things that I think is missed. And somebody I think my age can really kind of see, you know, I have no problem being that person at all, because I can go in there and show them what I've already achieved in my life, because I've done X, Y, and Z. I've been through the technical schools, and I've done the apprenticeships and everything like that, so I can see what this is, and these trainings and certifications have done for people, you know, so.
For the record, I have no idea how old he is, so, I mean, he could be 21 or 81.
I'm 31, so, yeah, but,
Thank you.
thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Chris Gadrich? Hi there.
Hello.
Thanks for coming in. We're going to start to my left with Jane and go up the line.
Can you tell me your basic understanding of the Open Meetings Act and how to use it or not use it?
I can only tell you what I've heard from the other candidates. Transparency is a word that everybody is using. I don't know why you would have a closed meeting. I'm sure there are some reasons. I don't know if it's financial. I don't know if it's legal. I'd have to find out what those reasons are.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
And so why should we appoint you above the other candidates to the JCDA?
Willingness to work in a focused manner on projects, a long experience at university and professionally working on focused projects, a long history of dealing with lots of different kinds of small manufacturing. I think I bring those kind of focuses to the table. I'm a hard worker. I don't have an agenda coming in. I don't have opinion about the situation in Jefferson County per se, being from Berkeley County. I often look at Jefferson County and I'm jealous of what is here because it's beautiful, it's pristine. Got some problems, but everybody does. I don't meet a lot of people from Jefferson County that I don't like. And I've been in and out of Jefferson County now for a long time.
Thank you.
Sure.
Chris, you indicated before that the only contact your company had with Rockwell was some pallets and things. Has that changed at all, or?
Not at all, no. We haven't heard anything from Rockwool for many months, and quite honestly, don't expect to. They reached out to us, Universal Forest Products, about manufacturing pallets for their process, but nothing since then.
If you had one thing you could say that you could give to the JCDA, what would it be?
By way of advice,
Anything?
have fewer interviews? No, I'm just kidding.
Commissioner Nolan.
Hey, yeah, that's a good one.
Just kidding. You all know that, we've mentioned transparency here a lot, and the folks sitting behind me with the Rockwool sweatshirts and signs, I'll say this to them. I only read one newspaper, it's the Washington Post. The masthead says, "Democracy dies in the dark." I'm all about taking the crap off of the mushrooms and being very transparent. How's that?
Josh?
Is there any county in the immediate area that Jefferson, or you think Jefferson could aspire to be like down the road, or?
Oh, no, you want to be just like Jefferson County.
I understand that, but that was a great answer, by the way. Are there
That's a
any?
right answer.
So now you like everybody from Jefferson, and Jefferson's great, so. The immediate counties, not Berkeley, because they're probably doing something really wrong if Jefferson's a lot better. But the immediate area, are there any counties that are doing things a lot, like very good, that we maybe want to mimic, or like is Fairfax County doing something that maybe we should start looking at mimicking, or? Like business, like if a business is successful, those competitors try to mimic what that business does well.
One of the things, I won't mention any county in specific or come out about and talk about a city. I will say this. Small manufacturing, mid-sized manufacturing, I go to some, and again, I've been selling to manufacturing facilities for 25 years. If you didn't know they were there, then they aren't there. I recently called on a facility that employs, and I'm not exaggerating, that employs 500 people plus, works 3 shifts, is a name that you would know as well as your own, a international corporation. You would never know it's there. You don't have to have a lot of walls. You don't have to have a lot of towers. You don't have to have a lot of steam coming out of the roof or out of a chimney to be a profitable, useful manufacturer of goods that bring jobs and bring prestige to your county. How's that?
Good answer.
No, thanks.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Appreciate you coming in this evening.
Not a problem. Not again, though.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, next up is Bob Gillette.
Running ahead of schedule.
We are running ahead of
Isn't that
schedule.
lovely?
I know, that's different for us. Thank you for coming in this evening.
You're welcome. I just want to make sure I am one of the older candidates.
I noticed we have the same color hair.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know your name. You could be 18 for all I know.
You're hired.
I didn't think I was interviewing. For God's sakes.
We'll start with Commissioner Tabb.
I'll just ask the same question. Basically, what is your understanding of the Open Meetings Act and how it's used?
I know what open means. I know what meeting means. I haven't read the formal definition. Sounds like something I would agree with, though, open meeting.
Okay,
I honestly, I don't know what the technical
Okay.
definition is.
thank you.
Okay, and I'll ask you the same question I've asked others. Why should you be the one that we select to be on the JCDA over the other candidates?
Well, I have a good strength in a lot of the activities that the JCDA is involved in. I had 30 years of experience, 5 of which were in the Supply Corps, where I learned procurement, logistics, contract management, which is a little higher than what's going on, I think. But I've spent the last 25 years with small business firms in the Virginia area, working only in the business development arena in terms of putting requirements together, evaluation criteria together. And I think I could bring that to some positive results in the JCDA. I might mention I also I've taught contract develop all those things for the federal government. I've also, in my MBA program, I developed a course where we actually taught people to be consultants, to go out and help small companies put together marketing plans and try to identify, what counties in the area would be, not this area, but down south, would be appropriate for them to prioritize.
Okay, thank you.
Bob, you live just outside of Shepherdstown, is that right?
Yeah, I'm not in the city limits.
But if Shepherdstown needed a representative, would you be willing to put your name in with them?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I know the mayor and I know a lot of people over there.
I don't know if that had happened or not, but I thought I'd ask. And I want to follow up on that. Some of us call Shepherdstown a separate county in Jefferson County. What's your view for development around Shepherdstown?
All right, let me be honest. I was listening to one of the gentlemen before me, thinking about, the question came up about the county in general. What do you think the county's all about? And I have to say, I think Shepherdstown is different in the fact that, I'm going to get burned for saying this, but I mean, it's like retirement mode. I mean, things are pretty good there in terms of what their business space is, and people are, status quo, I think, is perhaps a little more strong than in the other parts of the county. And that doesn't mean it doesn't need business development. It means it needs a different kind of business development. And you want to know what I think that is?
You
Have
want
the
to tell
magic
me, that's
answer.
fine.
I think the focus in Shepherdstown will be the not the industrial side of it, obviously, but more. I really think that it's open for cyber-related support that we see going on in the southern part of the state. Cybersecurity. Shepherd University has an MBA program that's screaming to get involved with their life program. They have students there that I know could be motivated to get out and actually be an arm of the JCDA. Maybe that's a bad way to put it, but to learn, the hard and the good things about bringing business into a community.
Okay, so assuming Rockwell is still here, how do you, as a new JCDA board member, court other businesses that are not heavy industry businesses? Do you think it's a detriment, or how would you use a business that is here and there's nothing you can do about it? How do you, as a new board member and the new JCDA, go about courting other businesses, perception-wise and whatnot?
Well, you got to go out and talk to them first. I mean, Rockwell to me is, I was not pleased to hear it coming in. But at this point, to me, it's a done deal. So let's get on with the job. What do we do next? I mean, there's things such as figure out what you want in here, and that might be a variety of things according to the different towns or regions. Put together a focused marketing approach and go down and talk to possible companies on this. I see people coming in down in the southern part of the state with opportunities that we could have up here. There's not a lot of infrastructure needed. You got Blue Ridge here too. Exploit that. And I don't know what JCDA has done in the past, but I'm hoping you get on your wagon and go down with the best presentation you can, rather than just sitting and hope the internet brings them in.
So you think there is a path forward even if Rockville should stay in the county?
Yes.
That's all I have, thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Thanks for inviting me back.
We're a little ahead of schedule. I see Christy Huddle is here. So are you okay with coming early, going early? Okay, come on down. Thanks for coming in this evening. We are going to start to my left with Commissioner Tabb, and we'll go up the line and ask you questions.
Well, I know with your experience on the Board of Zoning Appeals, you may have a somewhat different understanding, but explain to me your understanding and use of the Open Meetings Act.
Oh, I assume you're talking about the sunshine law that...
Yeah, that's basically what it
Right.
is the sunshine law. no?
That all actions that do not fall under executive privilege, ability to have the executive session, have to be in an open meeting. You have to have public can be invited,
Right.
not necessarily participate, but can be invited to witness it. And when you go into executive session, that you have to say why you're going in and give, cite the law that allows you to do that.
The particular reason and the subject matter.
Right.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, all right, I don't want to leave you out, just in case you decide. Okay. So my question to you is, of all the applicants that we're interviewing this evening, why should we appoint you instead of them to JCDA?
Well, frankly, I have no idea. I mean, just because I'm not really familiar with the other applicants. I mean, you might have some that are really, really good, so what can I say? In all modesty, every job I've ever had, I've done a great job. And I've gone beyond what the job said, because I hate being bored. And so, yeah. And when I take on a job, I'll just give you an example. I'm on the Town Water Commission. And we were going along, I've been on that for 9 years, I think, something like that. And we're going along, and I just decided that we really, really should have a water service plan that covered the every aspect of our water service, because we have our own water department, treatment facility, distribution, storage, all that. And I thought that it would be good to have a plan that explained it all. Said, well, all the laws, all the federal, state, and local laws that it pertained. And so I wrote it. Yeah, I volunteered to do it and wrote it. And they had talked about, a couple of the commissioners had talked about hiring a consultant, and I said, well, I can do it, and it'll be free. So you should go for it. And they did, and they loved it, including the two that voted to go with a consultant. And it really helped. It really helped to now know every aspect of it. So, and in doing that, I learned, all about Rule 150 and what all the PSCs have to do and all that. But that is the way I tackle stuff. I learn everything there is to know about it.
Okay, thank you.
I think we asked you this before, but if Harper's Ferry would have an opening, would you be willing to be their representative?
When you say that, what does that mean?
Well, we have to have a representative on the JCDA from each of the towns, but the towns themselves nominate people, then we pick somebody off who they nominate. Or I believe they're supposed to give us 3 names.
Okay.
Would you be willing to go through that process?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Some towns are very good about it. Some towns are not very good about
Yeah.
getting us names.
Oh, I'm sure Harper's Ferry is very good about it.
You're on the Zoning Appeals Board and the Town Water Commission. How would you describe how you were able to work with the other people on those boards? and with the staffs, let's put it that
Well,
way.
I try to keep my yelling to a minimum. Sometimes I'm not successful, just because I get really irritated when well, I don't handle when someone proposes something that's not legal. I walked out of one of the Board of Zoning Appeals meetings, but I warned them that I was going to walk out. We went into executive session. I said, if you do this, I will walk out. And we came back out. They voted to do that, and I walked out. And their meeting went on till like 8 o'clock, and then they found out the next day it wasn't a legal meeting. And I called up one of the guys and I said, no, because he hated going to long meetings, and yeah. But that's just the way I am. I just won't. I don't suffer fools gladly. Otherwise, I seem to get a lot of respect because I'm willing to do a lot of the work. I'm also on the town tree committee, and I do pretty much all the work. I won't run the meetings. That's the one thing I won't do, and I won't do the minutes for more than 7 or 8 years. Yeah.
Okay, so it sounds like you live in Die Harper's Ferry, so I'm going to pry your brain here a little bit. What's the biggest problem with the Hilltop Hotel, and what can be done to correct the problem?
Oh.
All my
I know
questions
what the
mean
biggest
something.
problem is, but I can't state it in public, okay?
You as a resident, what
Yeah.
is your biggest problem as a resident of the town? Because it's a development project,
Okay.
so how can it be done correctly to suffice what the town
It
wants?
may be an issue that water is.
Oh,
No, we
don't
have
speak anything
zero
that's
problem,
privileged.
zero
I'm just
problem
saying from a-
providing water, zero problem providing sewer. Zero problem with any of that. The biggest problem we have right now is not with the zoning approval, and I will tell you that I wrote the draft ordinance that allows it, because I knew we needed it because our law at that time was not legal. So I drafted that. I did not go to any of the meetings because there are limits to what I'll do when I'm unpaid. And going to planning commission meeting isn't when they're going over every little word. I'm not doing that. So I just educated the people, and they had to then take it from there after I wrote it. But the biggest thing is right now okay, the biggest thing is that we do not have staff. We don't have an educated body that can say this is how you deal with the paper streets and how you can make it so that they can use the paper streets. And for example, instead of having a legal street that you have, it goes over to them and they provide an easement in perpetuity for access that we want. But partly it's because you don't have the staff that knows the answers to those questions and how to explain them to the elected officials. Right now, that's probably the biggest problem. They hired a consultant, but the consultant was hired by someone who now is in a position to fire the consultant if they don't hear what they want to hear, and that's not a good.
I guess my thing is, do you think like a project like the Hilltop House more conforms to what Jefferson should be versus maybe a Rockwell or somebody else?
Hallelujah. Yes.
So
yes.
it's more schematics in your mind, otherwise you fully support something like that.
No, they came back with something that was pretty much what we described we wanted in the zoning ordinance. So those of us that worked on that, we're thrilled. We're thrilled.
Okay, I appreciate
Yeah.
the input, because I hear everybody saying we want more tourism stuff and everything, and this thing has been fought back and forth for over a decade now.
No, well, you
So-
can't. No, you can't count that because we did not have legal ordinances back then. So if they had been approved and you had a lawsuit, we would have lost.
Okay.
So it was a good thing that the economy tanked and they pulled out, because that is probably why they pulled out. Because I don't know if you're familiar with the big hotel in Leesburg that was being built at that time, and they just boarded it up and stopped work on it until after the economy came back. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you coming in. Okay, we're about 20 minutes ahead. I see Jennifer King is here. Do you mind going a little early? I hope nobody minds going early, as long as you're here. We may have to take a break instead of
Yeah,
waiting.
the last one will come in at 8:10 though.
I know, we may have to take a break. Yeah. Who'd have thought we'd be this far ahead? All right.
How you doing?
Fine, thank you. We'll start with Commissioner Tabb with her question.
It's just my basic question I've been asking everyone, explain your understanding in the use of the Open Meetings Act.
I'm getting much more familiar with the with all of that. I haven't been really involved with government, how it works up until recently, so I am catching up, but learning a lot. So, yes, there should be good reason to go into executive session, should be on the agenda. I respect attorney-client privilege, but I do also respect and see the need for the public to understand what's happening as well.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I'm going to ask you the same question that I've asked others. Why should you be the one we appoint over the other candidates that are on the list this evening?
I have drive, initiative. I'm one of those people that pick up the balls that other people drop. If it needs to be done, I'm the one that will put it on my back and do it. I have strong work ethics, personal ethics. That's about it.
Okay, thank you. Ralph?
Ms. King, I believe you're, I don't know if it's raising bees, honey, whatever. Do you feel you have, and I'm going to ask you this, assuming Rockwell comes in, what do you have a fear of anything after Rockwell,
You mean as far as other industries coming in?
as far as your industry goes?
As my industry,
Yeah.
I think it's going to put a huge strain on it. Economically, definitely. Bees are biomarkers. They're very delicate. They are the canaries in the coal mine, and they have a lot of problems right now, environmental problems right now. So I'm going to do what I need to do to protect them and whatever that might entail.
Thank you.
To your point, you do have the drive because I've seen the research you've done online, and dear God, I don't think I did more research in 4 years of college and grad school after that. But I mean, I'll
I'm
commend you for
driven.
that. I see it. There's stuff I've learned from your research that I was shocked.
Yeah.
So kudos to you for that. I guess I don't doubt for 1 second that you would do hard work if appointed to the JCDA. Should you be appointed, what's the first order of business you'd want to tackle?
Well, I don't want to assume how the JCDA has been ran. I think, a lot of people do that, and all I can say is from what I see looking in. So I need to assess how things are working within there first. And again, my focus is small business and helping them. I think the JCDA is a scale between business and the citizens. And I think the scale has tipped too far to business. So I'd like to work on balancing that scale back.
Excellent.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Greg Mason? Are you ready to go ahead?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay. All right.
I guess to be consistent, you haven't asked us to do whether.
Oh, okay. Would you prefer open session or executive session for your interview?
I'm fine with open session.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll start with Commissioner Tabb.
Same question. Explain your understanding and use of the Open Meetings Act when you're on a board.
My understanding of the Open Meetings Act is you have to notify people that you're having a meeting. It's open, and if there are things that need to be done closed doors or privately, then you announce that. You let people know that. And you go in the back and you do things legally, and you abide by the laws when you're back there and when you come out.
Okay, can you expand on that a little bit? Can you tell me the reasons it's legal to go into an executive session?
Well, I think there's
Some examples, I guess, is what I'm looking for.
Some examples. The board may be competing for business with other counties or states for somebody to come in. There may be things that need to be kept confidential that a company may require or somebody else may require, and things that you just legally can't expose to the public.
Okay, thank you.
So my question to you is the same as everyone else. Why should we appoint you over the other candidates that we're interviewing?
Well, as somebody else said, I don't know much about the other candidates, but I know a lot about myself. I'm a very hard-working, self-motivated person. I enjoy being part of the community and doing my fair share of what's right for the county and the community, and I can't be bought. I'm a very strong-willed, hard-working person, and I think could help the county.
Thank you. Rob?
I'm just going through my notes from your last time. My understanding is you're not retired, but you are currently a vice president at AMS?
That's correct. I'm not retired. I'm the senior vice president of AMS.
Well, let me ask you this. Have you had any conflicts with the JCDA since your company is out there?
No, sir. I've no conflict.
And how does, and I'm going to ask this because I don't know, how does your company or any company out there have input to JCDA?
I don't know that we have any input with you all. I know I've had relationships or items that we've had to take care of and with the Development Authority and AMS and different things there, but you know, an example, we're in, you know, I know that the sewer plant, we may have a pumping station in my backyard.
Your backyard or the company's backyard?
I'm sorry, the company's backyard. I previously had stock in AMS, and when Mr. Steele passed away, my stock was sold. I own nothing in the company. But I treat the company like it's mine. I mean, when I get involved in something, whether it's the board or a relationship with you, I spend your money like it's mine.
Now, and I should know this, but I don't, do you all lease the property or do you buy the property but have contract?
We have bought the property. We have 4 different lots in that park. I actually bought what the company bought, but I was a bidder for the company that bought a couple of lots across the street. And so AMS owns 4 lots in the park currently.
And you don't have to give any trade secrets, but do you all have any plans to expand?
We've had plans to expand, but we are talking about one now. There was an issue a few years back to where we took a project to Mexico, and I was very troubled with that, even though I oversee an AMS facility in Guadalajara as well. I want to keep our jobs here. I'm very loyal to the Steeleys and some of their prior wants, and Mr. Steely's intention was not to build anything out of the country and bring into the U.S. And we have a product line that we've looked at doing that because of some issues with building here, and we're reviewing some of that.
If I remember right, he thought South Carolina was a foreign country, didn't he?
He did. For those of you that don't know, because many people don't know the story, he gets falsely looked at that he took Dixie Narco to South Carolina. He sold out to Maytag long before that happened. I don't think I'm sharing any secrets, but I had known the Steeleys for many years. I was very close to Roy Steele and one of the team that left Dixie Narco before Maytag made the move to Williston, South Carolina, and helped start Roll Vendors with Roy Steele. So yes, he did not want to go to Williston.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so, see, I wish I just did what some others have done, just use the same question. It would have been a lot easier, trying to throw a few curveballs around here.
I'm all right with that. I'm used to that.
So, there's a big notion that some folks have that should Rockville stay or be here, it's going to put us on the path to further heavy industry, and that's all we're going to have. Do you think that if Rockville is here, we can still court other types of industry, irrelevant of them being here or not being here?
Absolutely, and I hope we do that. I don't think we need a lot of heavy industry in Jefferson County, and I'm not particularly for that. I won't say I'm against heavy industry, but I'm not particularly for that without knowing a lot of details. I think there's a lot of light industry that can be brought into this county and bring a lot of money. And I said in the past meeting, I used to do a little farming, so I'd like to see some of that as well. I think there can be a good mix brought into the county that can bring a lot of revenue in here. I'm concerned for the county of what we may have already driven out, but the future things that would be good for the county, and whether we're talking about light industry or agriculture or whatever. I don't want to see the county send a message, or the message be out there that people don't want to come to Jefferson County.
I guess just a follow-up, knowing that not distrust, but a lot of residents haven't been too pleased with how certain things went about. How do we mend that trust as a new board member of the JCDA, and also court businesses that are not heavy industry?
I think that's a very good question. My answer is that I think we as a board, or you all as a board, I'd love to join, but we as a board have to repair that relationship with the public, and I think they've lost trust in the board, and I'm not saying that should have happened, but I believe it did happen, and I think the board has to recognize that we have to go out and work with this community and earn their respect back, and get them to understand and believe that the board wants to do what's best for this community and everybody in it.
Thank you.
I do have something I'd like to say. I want to clear up. I think some people might have wrongfully thought that I'm a member of the West Virginia Manufacturing Group or whatever. I stated put in my profile and stated in the last interview that I'm on a committee with the West Virginia University MEP. It's a manufacturer extension partnership program. They do a lot of things with agriculture and as well as manufacturing, light manufacturing, and they focus on businesses that have 100 employees or less. And they do a lot of training, and it's funded training. A lot of businesses get grants and get the funded training for personal PPE, safety, first aid, that kind of stuff. It's not a heavy industry group. It's a light industry, and as well as many other things with that committee that I sit on.
Thank you for that clarification.
All right. Thank you.
Next up, Tim Ross. You okay going early?
No, yeah, that's
Okay, all right. And I'll ask you the same thing. Do you want to be open or closed? Open session or closed session?
Oh, it's fine.
Okay, very good.
Well,
Thanks for coming back.
thank you, President Nolan, Commissioner Compton, Commissioner Lanzetti, Commissioner Hudson, Commissioner Tabb. I do appreciate the opportunity to come back. And we've had a lot of interchanges over the past few months, and I'm sure you all probably think you know me pretty well, but other than my wife sitting there, I don't think anybody here really knows me all that well, and sometime I'm sure she kind of wonders too, but we all do. But,
Okay, well, we're going to ask you
Okay.
questions.
Okay.
And so I'm going to start with Commissioner Tabb, and each of us is going to ask you a question, and then, well, thank you.
okay, that's it, huh? Yeah.
Yes, that's it.
I'm just going to ask this a little different, just to vary things. Why do we have an Open Meetings Act? And how and why should it be used?
Why do we have an Open Meetings Act? Well, I wasn't there when they wrote it, okay?
Well, neither was I.
Okay, so, but I would think it's because it met a need, all right? So if you had a need for an Open Meetings Act, then there must have been a problem in the past, okay? So like Ms. King, I've gotten rather familiar with the Open Meetings Act lately, okay? How many days, and the Ethics Commission does not enforce the Open Meetings Act, I do know that, okay? And that it's kind of left up to the areas or the groups, but you have to post your agenda and your supporting documents certain amount of days. I know Charlestown is 3 days before. It's probably about the same here, okay? So all that has to be posted, not required on web, but everybody here pretty much does it, but you have to have it on the bulletin board, okay? You have to follow. It's kind of funny, about Robert's rules, okay? Because I went to Bolivar one night for a meeting, and there was an argument about whether they had to follow Robert's rules, and their attorney checked and said, you're not required to follow Robert's rules in West Virginia. Well, I thought was interesting. Anyway, I digress a little bit there. Let's see, where was I? You follow the agenda, you follow whatever rules you accept, Robert's rules. The executive session, at the Charlestown council meeting the other night, we're still not sure, and I think some of the council members weren't exactly sure why they went into executive session. And I see that there's a reason for it, and I think it should be used judiciously, okay? It's not like, oh, well, let's go in executive session and talk about stuff. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, ma'am.
So why, Caleb didn't have anything. He,
Have anything?
no.
Well, you look very sharp tonight.
Thank you.
I concur.
I clean up all right sometimes, you know.
I didn't recognize you when you walked.
So my question to you is, of all the applicants that we are interviewing this evening, why should we appoint you over them?
Okay, well, I don't know all the applicants you have. I don't know what, excuse me, what mix you're going for. In some occasions, I might be the perfect person for the team, right? Depending upon the other team members, I might be the worst person, okay? But I will talk about why I think that I would be a good person, okay? For one, I am a West Virginian, okay? And I do think at this point in time in the JCDA, it should be a West Virginian, should be appointed, preferably from this county, and not just because I'm against foreigners or anything like that, but I think when you say, hey, I'm a West Virginian, you change. I don't care if you've been here for centuries, like your family, my family has. I left the state when I was 13, and I came back when I was 43, or whether you moved here 4 months ago. When you say you're a West Virginian, something changes in you, the way you hear things, the way you see things, the way you perceive things, and the way you are perceived, okay? So I think that's important. On the team, I was, because one of the goals of the JCDA is to interact more with college kids and millennials, okay? Well, I'm a long way from being a millennial, right? So I think that would be a good thing to have the younger, but if you can't make the mix, as I mentioned before, to have like a group of citizens to be willing to assist, you know, because nobody knows everything, all right? So, but if you knew, hey, we've got a group of people out here that we need to reach out to, we need to get their opinion, and you don't have to go rooting around every time, but if you kind of have them there already on tap, I think that that would be a good thing. And another thing I believe, and why I'd be good, I think every team should have somebody that's kind of artistic, all right? If you get just a bunch of whatever's in there, artists like West Virginians, okay, look at things a little bit differently, all right? They see things at a slant. They connect things differently. And I think that's very important. Writers, painters, poets. And the tie-in here is, I don't think you can be a West Virginian and not be an artist or a poet. When you come into this valley and you look out and you see that, it's amazing. To me, that should be protected. It's a piece of work. It's a piece of art. It's a poem. Okay? So, then of course I do have some other talents, all right? I have experience. I still have a lot of energy. I have my health, thank God. I've done lots of different things. I have a scientific background. I have a communications background. I've worked with lots of different teams. I've managed offices. I've dealt with crisis, okay? If you want to see a busy workplace, you go into a weather office when a hurricane or tornadoes are coming through, all right? And everybody's been working in there for like 12, 14 hours and that sort of thing, okay? So I have a wide background experience, and what I don't know, I'll identify and I'll go figure out, like the Open Meetings Act. I went and learned about that because I had to. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, all right, thank you, ma'am.
One of the complaints about the JCDA board meetings, there is a belief that it was basically run as with an executive board. What's your view on how the board should be run?
Well, first of all, we need to follow the Open Meetings Act, right? Follow Robert's rules. Sometimes when you have a group, especially if you have too large of a group, there'll be people, the introverts like me, they're quiet generally, okay? They sit and think and cogitate, and then there are the people that are the go-getters that want to run things, okay? So it's kind of like gravity, right? It kind of gravitates into a small group. So I think the leadership is important. You need to set leadership so you make sure that everybody's involved. People aren't sitting around in the meeting and not saying anything, not participating, not coming, all right? So to run a meeting, you have to have people that trust each other, all right? Because if somebody doesn't trust each other, they're not going to speak up. If they don't trust each other, they're not going to listen to the other person, okay? Diversity was mentioned before, again, by the young man. And I had this one diversity training once. It was very interesting because we think of diversity, oh, wow, you're a woman, you're a young guy, you're a woman too, you know, and that's it, right? And it's not. Diversity is about finding the essence of a person, you know, and that comes from talking, communicating, listening. And once you start to understand where people are coming from, okay, then you can meet them, all right? So I think that's really important. And I'm not sure how, I got a question for you at the end exactly about these appointments, but I think it'd be really important, the board, when they get together, have some sort of team building or hang out or sit on the porch and talk about, with a beer, what Jefferson County is going through to try to break down the barriers and see where the fitting things are, okay? Because if you got people that trust each other and are focused on a goal, then you really don't really have too many problems, you know, as long as everybody has a piece of the pie and is treated decently. In my mind.
One more question.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned advisory groups or whatever. Assuming things go differently, would you be willing to be on the advisory board if there is one set up?
Yeah. I mean, you know, I didn't get up when I was a kid growing up. Boy, I really want to be on a JCDA board, Daddy, when I grow up, right? You know? And by the way, when I left the state when I was 13, I'd already lived in 15% of the counties of this state, all right? But, yeah, I'm here to help. It's not like, oh, man, if they don't hire me on the JCDA, then forget that, you know? I'm doing this, coming forth, because I love this place. So just because you don't pick me doesn't mean I'm not going to love this place. You bet. And I do think that's a good idea. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, sir. Okay. Yes, sir.
So I have two questions. The first one's really easy.
Oh.
So it's 2019.
I'll let you answer that one.
We've had advancements in technology with the iPhone, everything in our hands. Yeah. Why is it so hard for meteorologists to predict the weather storm?
Oh, low.
We're going to close this now. Okay.
Did you change your mind about the
Seriously, would you though?
No.
Executive session?
Yeah.
Yeah.
First of all, I think that is a misconception, all right? When I started, back in the 70s, right, we had the maps, the forecast maps that went out 36 hours. That was it. And it took you about 10 hours to get it. So by the time you got the map, the first map only had like 2 hours of life left.
You didn't have to answer that question, by the way.
No, because, you know, people think that's funny. They always make that joke like, I've never heard that joke before. Oh, well, the heavy-dippy weatherman, dark tonight, but light in the morning, you know. But it's not true, okay? Gotcha. If you look at the accuracy now at 5 days is probably where we were at 2 or 3 days. Hurricane landfall, for like every mile or every 10 miles, you save like $1 million, okay? I know personally, even when I was in the forecasts that I have made, probably saved more money than I've ever been paid, okay? And that's being wrong 15% of the time, all right? So track yourself as you go through your week and you figure out how many times you were wrong, all right?
According to my wife, always, but.
Well, there you go.
But, okay, with all due seriousness,
yeah,
though,
I was serious.
Okay, no, I know. Okay, so let's theoretically speaking, say for instance, Rockville is here. How do you see the path forward for Jefferson County? Also, as not only as a resident, but a JCDA board member.
Okay. Okay. First of all, I don't think Rockwell's going to be here, all right? But hypothetical. We'll focus on the hypothetical part here, okay? So if Rockwell's here, right? And if the pilot still exists, Mr. Deal, I was listening earlier today, and he says the JCDA doesn't have anything to do with Rockwell anymore. But if the pilot exists, if I still understand it, for the lease arrangement to work, the JCDA would still own everything over there, on the ground, above the ground, and below the ground, okay? So if the pilot still exists, then the JCDA, to me, would still have to settle out, you know, because it was a lease agreement, right, for the water line, right? But if you're going to have the pilot, and if they still own it, I don't think that water line part's gone along, but I'm not an expert, okay? But that's something they're going to have to sort out, okay? So if Rockwell does exist, does operate, if the pilot still exists, right, then the JCDA is going to have to figure all that out, okay? And I can't figure it all out for you right now here at this point, okay? So we've dealt with that little bit, right? Okay, so what's the JCDA do after that, right? Well, they get back to their mission statement. And the mission statement is the first one is to attract new businesses. The second is to build on existing businesses. And actually, I think that one should be number one, okay? I think, you know, you get your base too broad, you know, you should start building up, all right? So the JCDA is still going to have a mission, okay? And I do have some ideas about what they could do and what they could focus on. I don't know all the questions you're going to ask, but I do have some ideas.
Theoretically, there is a path forward, theoretically speaking, should they still be in the county.
Path forward for the JCDA?
No, I mean as far as just the prosperity of the county going forward. Do you think it's going to be?
Oh yeah, what are we going to do? Give up? Burn it down? Walk off? Go back to Virginia? No, I mean.
I don't know what's going on there. I don't want to go back to Virginia at all. So.
Well, Virginia wasn't that bad, I guess. But anyway, if Rockwell is here, it's going to be an iceberg, okay? It's going to be a monument to mistakes made, all right? And they'll make whatever they make, and they will pollute our air, and they will pollute our water, and they will pollute our light. Again, it's hypothetical. Maybe eventually, you know, the market forces, you know, their product isn't really as accepted as it was in the past. We'll see. They might end up shutting down and going off. But we can still do things, all right? We used to have heavy industry in this county, right? We got rid of it. Finally got it cleaned up. Ranson's starting it back over again. I really think that we should focus on more high-tech. We need to look at what the future is going to be, do research, figure out what the future is going to be, and to be standing there waiting for it, ready for it. When I was in Montana, this one guy says, Tim, he said, me and my wife, we're going to figure out what the rich people want, and we're going to give it to them, and that's how we're going to make money, right? And what we have to do is figure out, okay, what is the future going to look like, okay? And we need to be ready for that. They're going to need high tech. I mean, right now, big man?
High-speed internet.
High-speed internet. If you get that in, that's the infrastructure, not sewer, right? Sewer is just to put crap into the river. You know, but high-speed internet, you can have leapfrog economics, right? You've got that, the people that need that, they're really going to want to come here. We're an agricultural area, right? Build on that. Just think if, I have two things, all right? We have corn, we have extra grass, we have limestone filtered water. What's that sound like? That sounds like Kentucky or Tennessee. You can't even legally make moonshine in West Virginia, and that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard of. We invented this stuff. That's why my ancestors went over the mountains, you know? So I think we could develop perhaps a distillery industry. We have one, but the state laws kind of went that away. We need to work together with our legislators, get the laws that can promote things along that line. The other part is We have all these farms. You ever been down to Bushel and Peck? It's immaculate. It's beautiful organic food. What if our school system bought more of their food locally and fed the kids in the school, took the money from the parents, paid the property, bought the food from the parents that raised it? If there was people out there who said, wow, I could go there and actually live back on the land, to me that would be a wonderful thing, and it would be pushing forward what makes this place great. Okay, so I think we need to look at all the pieces. We can't just look at it separately. I was looking up the word economy comes from the Greek word oikos, which is talking about the family. So when you look at ecosystem, you're looking at the entire family. When you're looking at economy, you look at the entire family, the land, the people, the animals, all of that, and you figure out how it fits. In this case, what are our legislators and our delegates? What are they doing to help us get that forward? So if Rockwell's here, we'll deal with it, all right? And there's things going forward, but I think we should build the businesses we have and build off your strengths. Our strength is not making insulation, right? Our strength is agriculture and tourism and history and education. Those are our strengths. We've got a beautiful university. We've got all this beautiful land and farms. That's your strength. You work off your strength. Don't just go chasing money or jobs. Right now, I believe Mr. Deal can correct me, but half the people that work in Jefferson County don't live here, and half the people that live here don't work here. And I looked at the comprehensive plan, and I really liked how they put together. If you want open meetings, that's the way they did it. They had seminars and open meetings, and people got together and shared ideas, okay? Villages within villages, and reusing buildings that are vacant and stuff, all right? I help out the homeless shelter, and about 10-20% of the people in that homeless shelter have jobs. They just don't have a place to live, and they don't have a place to get to the jobs, right? So we keep building businesses way out and back and beyond, and the people can't get there. We're really not helping a lot of people. I remember, Madam President, you talked about how your dad worked in the factory, right? My uncles did, right? That's the way it used to be. It'd be kind of nice if you didn't have to go an hour and a half for your job. Does that answer your question, sir?
Yeah, above and beyond.
Okay.
I don't mean to be throwing curveballs at anybody, so don't take anything personally that I'm pointing you out or anything.
I can catch them. You throw them, I'll
I
catch them.
very well answered them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so we're up to this.
He said he had a question for us. So
Oh, what
did.
question do you have? Okay.
Well, way back in December, when this first came out, it was like, I think there was 2 openings for April that expired in April, right? Which is 3 weeks from now. Well, I think 2 of these, because you're only filling 3, right?
We're filling 3 tonight, yeah.
Yeah, 3,
with
okay,
this
so,
round of interviews.
so that's, and I think 2 of them expire next month. So if the people who are selected for the ones that expire next month, are you done? Or do you have to go through the process again?
Well, we will, anyone who's interested in applying will be able to apply. We're advertising that, I believe, now. So there can be other applicants, or if you're an applicant and you're interested, you didn't get the appointment to these 3 positions, you can reapply for
The positions that are going to expire
for the expiring terms.
next month.
Right. So if a person was selected tonight for a position that expires next month,
I don't think any of them do.
We're not
Yeah.
interviewing for
We're not
those.
interviewing for those positions tonight. This is for the 3 positions
Oh.
to fill the vacancies that currently exist.
right, but those vacancies expire in December. 2 of those vacancies expire in April, I thought. Is that
So
not
this
true?
is as a result of the resignations
Right.
and of us downsizing the size of the board.
Okay, so my question was, because I thought when I read it, that 2 of the openings I was applying for expired next month.
No.
Is that right? Okay, all right.
We just sent out, I didn't think I was going to talk tonight. We just sent out the advertisement for the vacancies that are expiring on April 5th. And so we are, we follow.
Results.
Oh, sorry. We follow our appointment policy, which is to advertise, to contact the people who are currently serving in those positions to see if they're interested in reapplying. If you don't get appointed and you would like to be considered for that next round, you don't have to submit it all. Again, just email Jessica Carroll and tell her that,
Okay.
you would
All right,
like
I
to be
just want to make
considered for
sure
those
that somebody
openings.
got selected whenever, that they wouldn't be out of a job in 3 weeks, so.
No.
And one last thing, I noticed, like, when I first interviewed, I answered a series of questions that the other people here tonight didn't answer. Well, they had to answer questions that I didn't have to answer. So do you want any answers from me on those questions?
I'm good.
I'm good.
You're good?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right. So what about the beer on the porch? I never got the beer on the porch question. I was really,
I was going to do that the other night, it was just too damn cold.
that's when you drink scotch. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank
Actually, Mr. Ross,
Yes.
when you said something, I misunderstood your question. So there is one vacancy that is that you're interviewing right now that is expiring in April 5th of this
coming
year. Yes.
April?
That's what I thought.
And I was going to suggest to you that for that position, the person not reapply, but you just appoint them with the effective date
To extend.
3 years from now, since, because it would
You wouldn't
expire
appoint
in
them
3
3 years
years.
from now.
Yes,
You'd
so you would
appoint
appoint
them-
them for 3 years, not 3 weeks.
Okay.
Does that make sense? With
Yeah, that makes a whole
commission-
lot more sense
The
than
commission
the-
has not decided that yet, but that was going to be my suggestion to them, because there is one appointment, you're right, that
Okay.
is.
I thought it
that
was
There
right.
is one vacancy that you're interviewing for right now that does expire on April 5th, 2019.
Okay.
So, but the commission
Yeah,
has
that would
not
be
discussed
senseless.
that
Yeah.
yet. I was going to make that suggestion to them at their next
Okay,
meeting.
well, I didn't know
So,
that, so
sorry,
I
I
just-
misunderstood your question a little bit, but you're right, there is one that is expiring.
Okay, only one. All right.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Catherine Walsh-Ryan? Yes. Hi, come on down. How are you? Fine, thank you. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Good. Thanks for coming in this evening.
I should wave to the camera because there's a camera back there.
Yes, there is. So thank you for coming in this evening.
Sure.
And we're going to start with Commissioner Tabb and go up the line with questions for you.
Explain to me your understanding of the Open Meetings Act, what it means and how you use it.
My understanding of it, Open Meetings Act, I don't really have much of an understanding, but by the name, I would say that people can come in and bring up issues of interest or concerns. I really don't, I have not read the act.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
All right, so my question for you is, why should we appoint you over some of the other applicants or the other applicants that we're interviewing tonight? Why should you be the one we appoint?
Well, I have a proven track record as a change agent. I've done that in different cities. Before we moved to West Virginia, I did quite a bit of that in Indianapolis, Indiana, where I lived after college and for many years before we moved here, 2003. I like the idea of looking at an area and saying, what could we do better? How could we grow this area so that it serves the needs of the current population and the future population? How can we serve the needs of youth, middle-aged people, older people? I mean, I don't think you can concentrate everything on either youth or the elderly. It has to be all community members across the gamut. Some people tell me that I'm kind of a transformational sort of leader, and I've been on various boards of directors where I've had the pleasure of seeing some really good things happen. In my career, I've looked at challenges like working at a downtown hospital that has new challenge coming in terms of healthcare, and what can you do to reach consumers and provide services that they would prefer over what the other new hospitals would do. Case in point, when I worked at Methodist Hospital in Indianapolis, it was a non-for-profit hospital. There was a new for-profit hospital coming on board, and our obstetric service was taking a hit. And at that time, we had about 1,000 births a year at a 1,200-bed hospital. And through some consumer-oriented programs and targeting to physicians who made the referrals, we got the births up over 4,000 a year, because the women who were our patients and our future patients knew about the services that we had to offer and the credentials of the physicians and how much better the services were. So sometimes it's a matter of communicating what you do best to a number of different consumer audiences.
Thank you.
There was a gentleman interviewing a few minutes ago who described the needs of artists on the board. Now, you are in the arts, but you're film and television. What input would you have to a group like the JCDA as far as how they do their business, how they advertise, how they do?
Well, I love the idea of getting the arts involved in communities. I think that's very important. I was a founding board member of Art Berkeley in Berkeley County, founding vice president, worked with that group for a while. I was on the executive committee of the Apollo Civic Theater. I think that's very important. My background is a mix of theater, writing, photography, filmmaking, television. I was director of marketing at the hospital where I worked, and then my consulting business has worked with a lot of arts groups. And I was just reading an article, I think it was in Forbes, about how arts has really a larger influence than commerce in general. And I thought, well, isn't that an interesting point of view? Because you often think, well, you know, what kind of impact does the arts really have? But if you look at the success of CATF, you know that the arts can be very successful in this community. And I think we need to have more of it. And you do need to have a creative person with an arts perspective to do well and to reach out to the artists, get them involved. A lot of the community events bring in money. If people can display their artwork, it's good on so many levels. The youth see that as an opportunity. You know, I can have a career in that field. And just recently with the House bill to get the film tax credits back in force, well, we passed the House. We didn't get it through the Senate. We couldn't even get it out of the Finance Committee, but that's a whole other subject. But I think the arts is so important, and I have not let that dream die. I'm quite sure that we're going to get a film tax credit back in place so the Eastern Panhandle can show off our natural beauty, our history. We have the most fabulous locations. The location scouting work I did was very exciting for, you know, Men Who Built America and Making of the Mob and some of those shows, the TV series. And I'd like to bring that back because it's good for so many reasons. I mean, people made money just renting out their houses. And you don't often think about that, but the transportation services and so many other good things happen with the arts. But you definitely need a mix of people who are totally business-oriented, and you do need people who are involved in the arts, because I like to think of myself as a creative person without the creative temperament that can sometimes accompany that. And I've worked with many creative people over the years, and as much as I like them, sometimes they can be it's my way or the highway type of attitude. Very focused on their creative vision, and it's this way and it's only one way. But from my point of view, I really like to get an idea of what everybody's thinking about, what everybody's looking at. I'm very big on market research and looking at best practices of what other communities have done in terms of the arts and building up different kinds of, say, agribusiness. I think we have a real future in green tourism. I think there's a huge interest in that forward. And, you know, agriculture, was at one time more of the backbone of this community. I can see it turning around as legislation changes. And I heard somewhere, or maybe it was an article I read about a hemp facility coming into the area, and they may be able to create a different type of commerce with, oils and hand cream and whatever else they do. So anyway, I like to look at new opportunities, new ventures. I think that's really important. I'm sorry, did I?
I think so, thank you.
Okay, so I guess my thing, coming from growing up outside DC and doing essentially the exact opposite of my generation, my long-term concern here is, yes, we need jobs here. 2, we need to lure younger families to come here. I always hear we want a Costco, we want a theater, etc. Well, Costco doesn't come anywhere unless it's like 150,000 people or whatnot, roughly around there. So we need I'm quite scared to see the 2020 census, to tell you the truth. I mean, we are growing, but how are we growing? We can't just be a retiree area. We need to be across the spectrum area. So other than the arts, which I agree is a very good mechanism to bring the younger generations and all generations to areas, what else could we do, or in your mind, the JCDA try to court to make those families want to come here permanently, not just visit?
Well, a lot of people come for educational opportunities. I think that we could have more internal. Well, like when I ran Ryan Film Institute, that was really geared toward teenagers, but in the 12 years that, since when I started it, I do have students working coast to coast. Now, why are they working coast to coast? Well, guess what? The film tax credits were eliminated, and they had to move outside. So I'd like to see those types of benefits for large businesses or for those TV and film productions over $100,000 can make use of the film tax credits. And, and I did do some I'm not a registered lobbyist, but I did some very informal lobbying and reaching out to my former students to say, I know you're working in Los Angeles. Please contact, this senator and that Congress member, whatever, to get these things across. I know you're in Chicago now. I know you're in New York. I know you're in North Carolina. You're working in Atlanta, wherever it is. But it is difficult to see the young'uns move so far away from home. And but we have to offer certain things. Like I said, the education component is important. Healthcare services will continue to grow with the aging population and the need for subspecialists in the area, recruiting the types of physicians that across the board, patients in this area will need is also important. I've had a real issue with internet situations. We need to really improve that. In this area, there were several film fests that I tried to enter, and when we had Frontier, it was impossible. You could never upload and send your films into a contest. Now that's very frustrating, So I had all these student films that I was trying to send to festivals. Frontier was terrible. It just did not work at all. It was very frustrating. So a lot of missed opportunities because then those students who were trained here don't get that opportunity to be seen on a national level or on an international level. And I think that's really important for us. And that's one of the things that video and film and TV can do for us. Rather than having an old-fashioned sort of, West Virginia means you're toothless and ignorant type of, idea, they get an idea that this is a really great place to live. It's a beautiful place to live. But unless we're in videos and we're on TV and we're in movies, who's going to know that? Because some people still look at West Virginia as a flyover state on their way to D.C. or on their way to, somewhere more interesting. So
I think our biggest problem here in the Eastern Panhandle is we are living in the 21st century and Charleston is living in the 18th century.
Yes.
So that's the biggest problem to begin with. 2, we would love to court like healthcare providers because generally states with more retirees, the healthcare comes to it obviously for services. We can't even get rid of our Social Security taxes. So who the heck is going to come here and retire here if we have those types of taxes? Right. So that's in turn is not going to bring those types of businesses here because more people are not retiring here. I mean, it's just a net cause effect for stupid decisions. I mean, and then all the money we generate if they left a lot of it here and let us remain competitive to the DC Metro, we could probably bring in far more money than we already do. But no, they just dole it out to areas that are, for lack of a better term, dying.
Right.
So I mean, it's just a culmination of issues. I'm not expecting you, it's just me like spewing.
Well, I mean, I think about
Tell me
this
I-
quite often because, our son went to Jefferson High School and is in college in New York now, and there is no way Elliot is going to come back here. There's no way. And I mean, Elliot knows that the tax credits are gone, but he has some really lucrative jobs working as a PA on different projects and, trained through Ryan Film Institute, and happy to say that I've had some wonderful students over the years, and they're doing really well. And, now that I'm teaching broadcast journalism at Washington High School, I see that opportunity for training youth. But my goodness, look at our budgets. We're dealing with circa 2010 iMac computers. I have 12 of them. Half of them don't work. 2 of them have crashed since September. It's very frustrating. And then it's like, oh, we'll make do. Well, the students can't finish their projects if the computers crash, and if you have 2 cameras to share, and you have 6 events to cover on one night for the entire Jefferson County school system, it's very frustrating. I'd like to see that funding come into the arts. I think that's a huge issue. So what are we? Are we technology or are we arts? Well, we're my class is an arts credit for graduation, but we use a lot of technology, more than, we're not fine arts in terms of oil painting and watercolors and that type of stuff, but we create things for the Board of Education. They need it for archival purposes. And frankly, a lot of people tune into One Jefferson and they like to watch all these student concerts that we record. But I'll tell you what, you try to, I was assignment editor for the first time for about 36 concerts during the month of December with 2 cameras. It was craziness. I'm telling you, it was wild. And I thought, how can we possibly? Well, thankfully, the Board of Ed loaned us 3 of their cameras because their board meetings were, had been delayed for the holidays. So we had 5 cameras. But now I know we really do need at least 5 cameras. 6 would be better. So, but we have to have funding. And there were a couple of delegates that I talked to about the concept of STEAM funding, putting arts funding into the technology programs, because really what I do is mostly technology now. We talk about the concept and the history and that kind of stuff, and we do the script writing and all that and the 3 phases of production. But you need to have the equipment that's up to date and operational so that we can reflect the good things that go on in Jefferson County.
Just one last thing, I know it drags us out. Just growing up 50 miles from here in Maryland and everything I was down there and coming out here and seeing some of the issues, it was astounding, even though my grandparents are from Morgan County. It's just the differential in mileage versus what is here and what is there is astonishing. It still is astonishing to me. It's unfortunate also. I don't think anybody sitting here is going to disagree that we would more rather have tech jobs or healthcare jobs or whatnot. So just even like with Rockwell, wow, someone actually wanted to come here. The state didn't have our necks held with either their taxes are terrible, the structure is a mess, we can't compete, we don't have internet access, etc. Just from my standpoint at least, someone even coming here above anywhere else, man, that's a win in my eyes when that was the Rockwell issue, for instance. So would I rather seen a internet company or high-tech jobs? Of course. Absolutely, of course. But we are in the point in time, unfortunately, it does not work here yet.
Well, when we lived in Indianapolis, we used to say that for every 10 miles you got outside of the capital, which was Indianapolis, every 10 miles out, you were about 10 years behind on business and healthcare and education, everything else. They were so far behind, just 10 miles out. And then that circle just got bigger and bigger, and it was 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years behind. And I just have a vision of us becoming more modern in the sense of the Wi-Fi capabilities and the healthcare facilities and that type of stuff, the educational opportunities. I have a dream and a vision, and I'd like to work with you all to make it happen. Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Or
I think that's it. Thank
Okay?
you very much.
All right, thank you.
I didn't limit my,
You have another
I didn't
question?
limit, no, I didn't limit my question to the same question for everybody. I can tend to
Yeah, I
like take
know.
up too much time.
That's fine. That's good. Is Michelle Suddeth here? Oh, there you are. Hi. Thank you for coming in again this evening. And I think I forgot to ask the previous Ms. Ryan, too. Would you rather have your interview in open session or closed session?
Open session's fine.
Okay, good. All right, so we'll start with Commissioner Tabb and go up the line with the questions.
Now, I'm just going with my standard question. What is your understanding of the Open Meetings Act and the appropriate uses of it?
Well, I've abided by the Open Meetings Act in various roles in my life. I think it's a law in 50 states. It's an important aspect of good governance and transparency. One must have it.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Why do you think we should appoint you to the JCDA over all of the other applicants that we are interviewing this evening?
Well, I'm not sure about the other applicants, but I think what I'm bringing to the table is, I think firstly, I understand what it means to be on the board of an organization like this. I've sat on civic boards, I've sat on nonprofit boards, I'm currently on the CATF board and heading up their strategic planning. And I realize that our role is to advance the mission of JCDA. And its mission is quality of life and business growth. And I think to be kind of really dogged about that goal and to support its strategic planning, the fiduciary responsibilities, and overseeing staff is really the role of this board. So I kind of want to, I think I bring that kind of direction to this role. Secondly, I'm a marketing and communications person, so I think a big role of development authorities across the country are about marketing and branding, where you are and what you have to offer. So I would look forward to bringing those kind of creative and strategic skills in to talking about Jefferson County and what we have to offer. And I guess lastly, I've spent a good part of my career working in community and economic development, both working for an anchor institution, which was a large university that cared about community development and looked at it, community and economic development, in all its aspects, from housing to workforce development to jobs growth to schools, and how it really is this puzzle that makes communities strong. So I feel like I have a wide purview on kind of the pieces of the puzzle.
We've had two applicants talk about the arts in film and things. You're primarily an MBA type person. How would you be able to work with a large board of 15 people?
Is this about the arts, or is it about working with people?
If we have a very mixed JCDA, what do you see your ability to work with them and to get results out of a JCDA board?
Well, I did my thesis in social work school along with my MBA on collaboration. So I really do think there's this idea of all ideas, bringing different perspective together to move the ball across the field. And I think how you get to that is by clear planning and goals and lots of transparency. And in terms of working with the MBA people versus the art people, I've kind of proven that I do both, working both in the private sector, but super supporting the arts. I mean, my role in CATF has been a really great experience for me, and we recently did an economic development study that shows the impact of the arts on Jefferson County, which I think will be a useful tool for the Development Authority as we go forward in advertising what we do. So I see the value of both strategy and business as well as arts and cultural destination marketing efforts.
I assume you're not a shrinking violet, so let me just say, but what do you see your role? Do you want to be a leader on the board, or?
I'm always a leader.
And the question comes up, we've had a complaint that some people only showed up a couple times a year and those type things. What do you feel, how much time can you give it? Let's put it that way.
I would not be here if I was not committed. I don't do anything, I want to say, half-ass. If I'm here, I'm committed to be here, and if I couldn't be here, you know, this wouldn't be something I would be coming here tonight at 8 o'clock to do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so you talk about MBAs like being a bad thing. I mean, gosh, I have an MBA. I mean, it could
Yeah,
be worse.
thank
You could be
you.
a lawyer with an
My
engineering
first-
degree.
My first cousin went to University of Chicago and got an MBA. And he realized, he was the football coach, and realized he had to raise his own salary and quit at the University of Chicago, so.
They won their first Heisman, though. That's their claim to fame, even though they no longer have a.
Yeah, at least you're not an attorney, so you're already good in my mind, so.
You see where I sit.
But I am married to one. But.
So you're relatively new to the county, right? I think you
Yeah.
recall, you came here for, I think you said, I thought it was love of the county, but evidently it wasn't love of the county, it was just love, right?
No.
But anyways, coming from the outside to a new area, what do you think we could do better here?
My first drive around West Virginia, I always said to all my friends back home, this is the most underrated state I've ever been in. There's just so much beauty. There's so many wonderful people. I have my daughter in the audience who's doing some shadowing in public health, and she says, everyone is so smart, is so nice. They're just so caring about, the world. So I just think this is a super special place, and I do think it's kind of undervalued, and it's kind of like a lampshade over, light under a bushel.
I mean, the state tourism office doesn't do us a good justice either with some of the ads they spin in the DC area. I mean, I could do better advertising for the DC area than some of the stuff I've heard thus far.
I'd love to do some of that.
I don't know, Nick, who we need to talk to about that, but dear God. But yeah, we need Annette Gavin doing those ads. I mean, but is there anything else that you want to add as far as like what you want to change if appointed to the board? What's your first order of action you'd like to see occur?
Well, I guess, to be perfectly honest, I'm ready to turn the page on Rockwell. I think there were things that could have been done better. There's, not everyone is happy. And really my driver for being here is I really hope that the community comes together and that an economic development plan is put together that takes in community input, thinks about economic growth more strategically, and kind of moves on. We have really important questions. I think there's going to be population growth, there's 5G, there's many more people who are going to be moving into this area. How do we kind of balance so many issues? There's so much to be done. So I guess I'm ready to turn the page and be strategic, bring the community together, and do some great stuff.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we have one more applicant to interview this evening, Sheila Vertino.
Best for last, right?
I see you switched the J's.
There's a low and there's a high.
Yeah, that's right.
There's a gnome around here by name of Josh who keeps stealing my chair.
Just for fun?
Yeah, switching them out. But I didn't see it. No. Thank you for coming in this evening, and I'll ask you the same question. Would you prefer this to be an open session or a closed session? Okay, good. So we'll start with Commissioner Tabb.
No surprise what my question is. What is your understanding of the Open Meetings Act and how it's used?
Well, I learned a lot more about it tonight. But prior to, I haven't served on a board that deals in a government environment, so I really didn't have any knowledge of that particular thing. But obviously, in theory, I support it completely.
Okay, thank you.
I'm speaking to the mic.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, okay. And why should you be the one that we appoint to the JCDA?
I think that I bring a depth of knowledge with regard to development and just different types of industries and
Because of my background, working for the Trade Association with Commercial Real Estate Development. I think I also have my personal characteristics. I've served on lots of different kinds of boards, and I am the kind of person who shows up. I'm a person of substance, and you can count on me.
I see that you have a lot of background in these type organizations and things, but how do you feel you would be able to work with a board such as this with 15 members that probably right now does not have support of a large section of the community? How would you deal with that?
I think you're asking me, I heard a similar question earlier about repairing the relationships. I think that there's work to be done there. And I think we're going to have to bend over backwards in terms of transparency. I think we're going to have to take a more visible role in terms of things like social media and kind of, tweeting out or whatever you want to do about things that are going on in JCDA. I think in the past it kind of operated, it was doing its own little thing over here, but it didn't really have as much of it wasn't facing it forward as much to the public as I think we need to do now.
Now, you work for trade associations and such. What is your view of what Jefferson County can sell about itself?
I was thinking a lot about this, and I think one of the worst things we could do at this point is kind of come up with a list of industries and companies, and we should be doing this and we should be doing that, because I think what it'll do, I think it's premature, and I think the result, if the board kind of gets into that, would be to just frankly make Mr. Deal's life a living hell, and it would slow him down, because he'd have to be kind of dealing with all these different ideas that he knows in his mind are not possible for various reasons. So I think it would be better, what I'd like to see is a really thorough orientation of the board, and then that would give us a grounding where we'd all be experiencing the same thing. And it would be the typical things, like a SWOT analysis, what are our strengths and our weaknesses and our opportunities and threats. And I would really like to see that presentation given for each one of the major, not SICs, but major portions of industry. So ag, tourism, manufacturing, those kinds of things, but SWOT analyses on these various sectors of the industries in the county. I'd also like to know which industries in the past did we court, and which industries did we lose, and why did they say we lost them? So that would give me more of a sense of kind of where we are in the eyes of people coming from outside the county. I think the other thing that I'd like to do, and I know we did this at Mount St. Mary's, there's something called aspirational peers, and that's where you identify five organizations. So in the case of the Mount, those were 5 universities, but in our case it might be 5 other locations that are similar to us, but are doing a little bit better. And so we look at them and we say, what kind of industries do they have there? How did they get those industries? The other thing that I really think we need to do is to have a deep discussion about how do we use the resources of the JCDA when it comes to recruiting industries to come in, as opposed to growing the industries we have. Because there's a finite amount of resources. So what's it going to be? You're going to go over here to a much more competitive direction where you're trying to, get people to come in and you're going to have to negotiate with them. Or are you over here where you're just, growing your industries, growing your economy? Those businesses are the ones that create wealth, because wealth that stays in the county. The others, like with Rockwell's a perfect example, those profits are going to Denmark, or to, a corporation that's based in Denmark. So. Okay.
Last question. Unfortunately, I don't think it is.
A doozy.
But I think I wore myself out. No, that's right.
Good.
But I will commend you. No other candidate said SWOT analysis,
Oh,
and it
okay.
makes the most sense
Yeah.
out of anything I've heard thus far. And it's like the basic thing you learn first thing in business school or marketing is a SWOT analysis.
Yeah. Well, I think it would form a shared experience for the group, too, so it could serve as a bonding.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I totally support that too. I guess just basic thing. Say you're put on the board. What would you, as a board member, director deal to focus on initially? I mean, because you have to focus on something. I mean, that core mission is to bring businesses here. So we need to have some sort of direction for the director.
Right. And I agree. But I don't know that I'm, I think sequentially, it's better to wait, to not advance things before you hear that SWOT analysis. Then you can make more informed suggestions to him. Personally, I think that growing the businesses in the county is really important. And I'll give you a good example of something that they were doing in Loudoun a couple of years ago. I don't know if they're still doing it, but it had to do with ag businesses. They had two initiatives. One was they were trying to identify certain types of agricultural products that had a lower risk and a higher profit. And so, they instead of, say, corn and soybeans, they came up with stuff like berries and herbs and even like turf farming. But there were a couple of other things. But I thought that's a strategic way of looking at agriculture. And the other thing with regard to ag was they were noticing that, of course, they had a lot of farmers who wanted to retire. And they had people coming in who wanted to be farmers, but they were young and they were inexperienced. And so they were developing programs specifically for that group of people to support them to be more successful in an industry where they definitely needed this backfill to come in.
At Loudoun Ag Development Office. So, yeah. The lady that just left there for a big job in Maryland, tourism, she started in Jefferson County. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Too bad we lost her.
Yeah.
And the position.
Oh, yeah, I think.
We did have an ag development officer
I
at one time.
know, I know.
Yeah.
That's very unfortunate.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
That's all. Thanks.
All right, thank you very much. So the commission will consider the interviews this evening, and we will make our selections and notify on the 21st at our regular meeting. So thank you very much. Thank you all for coming, and thank you very much to the applicants for coming back a second time.
Is that a day meeting or evening meeting?
What?
Talk more than
She
this.
said it'll be an evening meeting, the 21st.
The 21st is an evening meeting.
Did I talk well enough?